Welcome to my channel StarWire Daily. Please share and subscribe and press the bell icon for new updates. At 78 years old, Barry Gibb finally tells the truth about his brother Andy Gibb. Barry Gibb was born Barry Allen Crompton Gibb on September 1st, 1946 in Douglas on the Isle of Man. He is one of the most famous musicians, singers, and songwriters in music history. From when he was little, Gibb was amazing at music. His family saw how talented he was and helped him start performing with his brothers, Robin and Maurice. They eventually made one of the world's most famous bands, the Bee Gees. Their story started small with little shows in Australia in the 1950s, but they were so good that they became world famous. The Bee Gees became super successful in the late 1960s and 1970s. They became masters at singing together and created the pop and disco sound. Barry, with his high singing voice, became the musical leader of the group and wrote most of their songs. He wrote and made countless hits not just for the Bee Gees, but for other famous singers too. Songs like Stay Alive, How Deep Is Your Love, and Night Fever became songs that everyone knows. They helped create the Saturday Night Fever time period and made everyone think of the Bee Gees when they heard disco music. Barry Gibb wasn't just good at disco music though. He wrote songs for and worked with singers like Barbra Streisand, Dolly Parton, Kenny Rogers, Diana Ross, and Dionne Warwick. This showed he could write hits for pop, country, R&B, and adult music. Very few songwriters have ever been as successful as him. Barry is known as one of the best songwriters ever. He wrote over 1,000 songs and had hit songs for many decades. He was put into the Songwriters Hall of Fame and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame because his music changed the world forever. While Barry's work life was full of wins, his personal life was filled with both happy and sad family moments. The Bee Gees weren't just a band. They were real brothers connected by family and music. When his brothers Andy, Maurice, and Robin died, Barry felt terrible sadness. He became the last Gibb brother still alive. In many interviews, he has talked openly about how painful it is to be the only one left. But he has kept going to honor their memory by keeping their music alive for new fans. His strength, kindness, and hard work to keep the Bee Gees story going make him a symbol of not giving up when bad things happen. Barry's impact isn't just in his records, but also in how he touches millions of people's hearts around the world. His high singing voice became one of the most famous voices in music history, and when he performed on stage, he showed both confidence and warmth. Even after being in music for decades, he kept performing with passion, connecting with fans who grew up with the Bee Gees and with younger people hearing their music for the first time. His long career and timeless music proved that really great music never goes away. Barry Gibb's personal life, just like his career, has been marked by big moments, dramatic changes, and very important relationships. His first marriage was to Maureen Bates, a young woman he married on August 22, 1966, when he was only 19 years old. At that time, Gibb was still trying to make it as a musician, and he was trying to balance his quickly growing career with being a grown-up. Their marriage didn't last very long, though. Even though they seemed like they wanted to build a life together at first, the marriage had problems because of Gibb's growing fame and the hard pressures of being famous. The couple only lived together for a short time, and by July 1970, they got divorced. This short marriage is often remembered as an important time in Gibb's personal journey, showing how hard it was for young stars to have stable lives during the crazy 1960s pop culture time. It wasn't long after this first marriage ended that something special happened to bring Barry Gibb together with a woman who would become the love of his life. While filming the BBC's very popular music show, Top of the Pops, in London, Gibb met Linda Gray, who was famous herself as the former Miss Edinburgh. Their meeting was described by Gibb as a moment of true luck, and they fell in love quickly. On September 1st, 1970, which was also his 24th birthday, Barry Gibb and Linda Gray got married. This started what has become one of the longest-lasting marriages in the entertainment business. Their marriage has been the foundation of Gibb's personal stability, lasting through the craziness of fame, changes in the music business, and even the heartbreaking loss of his brothers. Together, Barry and Linda built not only a marriage, but also a big and close family. They are the proud parents of 5 children: Stephen, Ashley, Travis, Michael, and Alexandra. Their oldest, Stephen Gibb, followed his father by becoming a musician too, becoming both a guitar player and a songwriter, even working with heavy metal and rock bands. This shows how many different types of music the Gibb family likes. Barry is also a grandfather many times over with 7 grandchildren who have brought even more joy into his life. Gibb has often talked about how his wife and children keep him grounded, saying they give him purpose and balance when being famous gets overwhelming. In 2009, Barry and Linda made their connection to the United States stronger by becoming U.S. citizens while also keeping their UK citizenship. Having citizenship in both countries showed not only Barry's lasting love for his British background, but also his long-term promise to the country where most of his adult life and work success had happened. By this time, Barry had been living mostly in the United States since 1974, though he kept a home in the UK to stay connected to where he came from. Barry Gibb's personal life also connected with another music superstar, Michael Jackson. In a 2014 interview with The Mirror, Gibb talked warmly about the friendship he had with the king of pop. He said that Jackson would often stay at the Gibb house in Miami, where he liked the comfort of Barry's family home better than the craziness of hotel life. Gibb painted a picture of Jackson's funny and childlike side, sitting in the kitchen, watching fans outside his hotel on TV, giggling with his famous high-pitched laugh. He remembered that Jackson even lived upstairs for a while right before his very public court trial about child abuse accusations. Gibb was clear that they never talked about the legal case. Instead, their friendship was built on making music together and being friends. The two would write music together, share wine, and even drink enough sometimes that Jackson would fall asleep on the floor. Gibb said that he really misses Jackson, showing how sad he feels, not just as a fan of Jackson's music, but as a friend who knew him personally. Real estate also played an interesting part in Gibb's life. In January 2006, he bought one of the most historically important properties in American music history, the former home of Johnny Cash and June Carter Cash in Hendersonville, Tennessee. Gibb's plan wasn't just to own the house, but to fix it up and turn it into a place where he could write songs, a place where creativity and history could come together. The house, however, had a tragic ending. While it was being fixed up in April 2007, the property caught fire and was completely destroyed, erasing a piece of cultural history. Even though this loss was heartbreaking, Gibb had a new home built on the property, honoring the land and the musical spirit that had once lived there. Finally, in 2014, he decided to sell the estate, ending a chapter on a project that had carried both dreams and disappointment. At 78, Barry Gibb finally opened up about the truth about his youngest brother, Andy Gibb, in a way he had never done before. For decades, Barry, who had been both big brother and teacher, had carefully protected his private sadness, choosing instead to celebrate Andy's amazing talent and charm whenever people asked about him. Now at an age where thinking back and being honest become more important than keeping up carefully built public walls, Barry let himself speak with rare openness. He admitted the complicated mix of pride, joy, regret, and sadness that had always been part of his relationship with Andy. Andy Gibb was more than just the baby brother of the Bee Gees. To Barry, he was a boy full of light and potential, a naturally gifted singer whose charm seemed effortless. From the moment Andy first started performing, Barry saw signs of brilliance that matched what he and his brothers had achieved as a group. When Andy released hits like I Just Want to Be Your Everything and Shadow Dancing, Barry wasn't just his co-writer and producer, he was his biggest supporter, putting his own creative energy into making sure Andy succeeded. In those days, Barry often said Andy was the Gibb with the purest pop voice, a natural-born star who could have ruled the world stage for decades. But behind Andy's young smile and love from millions of fans, Barry saw a weakness that few others noticed. The truth that Barry revealed at 78 was that Andy's quick rise to fame came too fast, too young, and without the emotional strength to handle it. Barry admitted that he had worried constantly about his brother's weakness, his need for love, his wanting to be accepted, and the way the pressures of fame made those insecurities bigger. Andy, he explained, was pushed in the spotlight before he had time to really grow up, and that left him open to the destructive temptations that fame brought with it. Barry did not avoid talking about the hardest part of the story, Andy's struggles with drug addiction. For years, Barry had spoken carefully about it, never wanting to turn his brother's story into just a warning tale. But in this later thinking back, Barry admitted how terrible it was to watch Andy fight his inner demons. He described how helpless it felt to know that no matter how much love and support the family gave, Andy could not fully escape the hold of drugs and the emotional pain that came with them. Barry's truth was not about judging, but about deep, lasting sadness. He admitted that he had often asked himself if there was more he could have done, if different kinds of guidance or tougher love might have saved Andy's life. When Andy died in 1988 at just 30 years old, Barry was crushed. Losing his baby brother was a wound that never truly healed. At 78, he confessed that even after all the wins of the Bee Gees, the awards, the recognition, and the legacy that touched generations, Andy's absence was the quiet shadow over it all. Every time Barry performed one of Andy's songs or heard his voice on a recording, it was like time folded in on itself, reminding him of what was lost far too soon. But Barry also shared the truth about the love that continued beyond death. He spoke about how Andy stayed alive in memory, in music, and in the unbreakable bond of brotherhood. He carried Andy with him in every lyric he wrote, in every note he sang, and on every stage he stepped onto. The truth, Barry said, was that Andy was never just the younger brother who didn't get enough time. He was an important part of the Gibb family story, someone whose presence shaped the very heart of their lives. At 78, Barry Gibb, the legendary Bee Gees frontman, finally opened up in an honest and heartfelt interview about his younger brother, Andy Gibb, revealing emotions and truths that he had carried privately for decades. Thinking back on his brother's life, Barry shared, Andy was a shining star, but he struggled in ways that people didn't fully understand. He was full of talent, full of life, but sometimes the pressures of fame and the lifestyle around him were too much to handle. The loss of Andy, who died tragically at just 30 years old, had left a mark on Barry's life that could never be erased, one that he said he only fully understood as time went by. Barry remembered that the day Andy died was just 5 days after his 30th birthday, a milestone that should have been a moment of celebration, but instead became a moment of sadness. He remembered with regret, "We had a fight shortly before his birthday, and I never thought that would be the last time I would see him alive. I carry that with me every day." Barry's thoughts went beyond the tragic final moments. He spoke of Andy's charm, his musical genius, and the way he captured audiences with his soulful voice and natural charisma. Andy had something special, Barry explained, something that could touch hearts easily. People loved him not just for his music, but for who he was, his kindness, his humor, his warmth. But fame can be both good and bad, and it's something I wish I could have protected him from more. The conversation also showed Barry's lasting sense of responsibility and guilt as an older brother, feelings he described as both heavy and motivating. "I always try to guide him, to support him. But sometimes love isn't enough when someone is fighting their own battles," he admitted. Throughout the interview, Barry Gibb's words carried both sorrow and admiration. He remembered personal memories of Andy, moments that showed his brother's playful spirit, his dedication to music, and the deep bond they shared as family. "We were brothers first, musicians second," Barry emphasized. "The music was our language, but it was our family that defined us. Losing Andy so young was like losing a piece of myself, and it's something that never truly goes away." In finally sharing these thoughts publicly, Barry not only honored Andy's memory, but also gave a touching look into the human side of the Gibb family, a story of love, regret, and lasting brotherhood. His thoughts are a reminder of both the brilliance and weakness of life, and how even when you're famous and successful, family and connection remain the most important things of all. At 78, Barry Gibb's words were not simply a revelation about Andy, but proof of the lasting complexity of family love, unconditional, joyous, sometimes heartbreaking, but always eternal. For Barry, telling the truth about Andy was not just about setting the record straight. It was about finally giving voice to the love, the pain, and the unspoken memories that had lived within him for nearly 4 decades.